The Whispering Doodad by Graham McNeil. Let me tell you about my glade. On a clear night, like this night, in fact, when the moon is full and ripe, silver light glitters on star-shaped leaves with hair-fine fronds like threads of silk, and night-blooming selenia render my glade a magical wonderland. A traveler might catch the scent of far-distant continents on the wind. Only hints, to be sure, but such hints. A bouquet of desert spices, sun-baked stone, and salt from the crests of racing waves, mingled with the evergreen sap scent of highland firs. You might think such a turn of phrase overly whimsical, words that might tumble from the lips of a hopeless romantic or a lovelorn poet. You'd be right, of course, but that doesn't make them any less true. And while we're on the subject of romantics, an artistic soul might, if they came here at just the right time, see dancing patterns in the moonglow dappling through the forest canopy. Their eye might follow it around, gradually sensing an order to the play of light and shadow across the bark of a tree, or in the ripples upon a pool of water. A pattern that almost looks like it might just form a doorway of sorts, if only it would complete. But no matter how those patterns swirl and dance, they never fully coalesce into a whole. Almost never, that is. After all, the magic of these lands is skittish, with good reason, and doesn't reveal its secrets to just anyone. We nature spirits are drawn to places like this. They nurture us, as we in turn nurture them. You can find us all over the world, in some places more than others, yes, but if there's magic bubbling up, like as not, you'll find a spirit like me. I flatter myself that the glade I inhabit is more infused with it than most other places in this land that mortals call Noxus, if you know the right way to look. Most of this world's inhabitants have forgotten how to see, how to really see, but there are others, a whole race of them, in fact, who never forgot. They're called Yordles, and they're not exactly from this world. I'm friends with a lot of them. 2 of them are approaching now. It sounds like they're trying to get back to their kin, but they're having trouble with the, for want of a better word, key that's supposed to help them find their way home. You see, the low roads they travel don't run on the surface of this world, nor do they travel straight, like those of the men who call the lands hereabouts home. They curve and loop, swirling all around the place like a crazy knot you can't ever untie. Most Yordles know how to travel them relatively easily. But these 2, let's just say, they're not the best suited traveling companions. I can hear them, just beyond the spirit veil, bickering like a pair of hungry foxes. They'll be here soon, but I wonder if they know they're not the only ones approaching. Mortals are coming this way. Warriors, armored in steel and stone, bearing instruments of death. I don't like them, but don't misunderstand my reasons. I understand death is necessary, a vital part of the natural cycle of being. But these people only take and don't give back. They pave over the land with roads that do not curve. They use their axes and saws to clear the land of growing things. They are an empire of angles and order. Nearby trees bend away from them in response, but they don't notice, of course. Mortals almost always miss their impact on the world around them. A woman with long brown hair is the first to enter my wooded glade. She taps spurred heels to her horse's flanks and rides in a circle, scanning the tree line and ground for signs of life that might mean her harm. Her eyes are cold, and she surveys the beauty of the trees like a woodsman sharpening an axe. She halts her mount in the middle of the glade and sits in silence. She hears birdsong, the sighing of the forest, and the burbling stream flowing over time-smoothed rocks. Most people who come here are calmed by these sounds, their souls replenished simply by being in nature. But not her. None of the forest's energy touches her, and I don't know whether to feel sad or angry. The woman is patient, and only after several minutes pass does she lift her arm and spread her fingers wide. Moments later, a dozen riders appear at the edge of the glade. Their horses are exhausted, flanks lathered white and heads bowed. These animals have carried their riders a great distance, so I extend a little magic into their tired limbs. They whinny and toss their manes in gratitude. A mustachioed man clad in leather and furs rides towards the woman. A bronze circlet holds his long dark hair from his face, and his tunic has been cut to show off his muscular build. A wolf pelt cloak mantles his shoulders, and a pair of circle-grip axes are slung at his back. Like the woman, his gaze makes me fear what he might do to the trees. Yes, I think I dislike him even more than the woman. "What took you so long, Tamara?" he says. "Afraid we'll be ambushed?" She ignores his questions. "We should make camp here, Draven. Fresh water and plentiful wood. It's broad and wide, too, so there's limited avenues of approach." Spoken like a true Noxian Warmason. You say that like it's a bad thing. She slides from her saddle, and as soon as her boots hit the ground, I recoil from the stone in her veins, the iron in her soul. The sounds in the glade dim, but none of the humans notice. "I want to reach the capital before we die of old age," says Draven. "The fighting in Basilich was fun, but I need to get back to the arena and put these axes to good use. You also want to go back and tell Darius you'd rather his army advance without a Warmason carefully scouting the way?" "We're in no danger," says Draven. "Not in the Empire's heartland." She folds her arms. "You heard what happened to Wintery outside Drekan?" "No," shrugs Draven. "But you're going to tell me, aren't you?" She looks at him, then sighs and shakes her head. "What would be the point? It's not about you, so you're not going to care." I listen to them trade insults back and forth, but am confused at how the words they say don't match the shimmering colors of their auras. It's a source of great confusion to me that mortals spend so much time saying things they do not mean, and feeling things they do not express. There's an honesty to nature, albeit a bloody one, you can count on. It's nightfall when the Yordles get here. I feel the irresistible call of their key, and push a little of my power into the spirit realm to open the way. One of the silverbark trees shifts her branches windward slightly, and the last rays of sunset complete a glowing amber pattern on the gnarled knots of her mossy trunk. Shadow, light, and ridged bark combine to form an endless loop that, from a certain angle and a certain height, looks like a portal into a land of eternal sunrise. Whispers and song echo from the arbor in the heart of the tree. The Noxians are busy with their horses, and the animals make enough noise that the humans don't hear it. It sounds like the winds are speaking, passing secrets between the trees. Maybe they are. You can never really know what the winds are saying. Well, maybe the blue bird of the seas knows, but she doesn't roam far from the sunken city these days. The grass around the base of the silver bark ripples in a warm breeze that carries a multitude of stories from another realm. I've heard hundreds of them, but the Yordles have an inexhaustible supply, and I never tire of learning of their travels. There's a soft pop of air, like a bubble bursting on the surface of a lake. And two diminutive forms tumble out from the tree. They roll into the high grass, looking surprised to find themselves in a forest glade. One of them immediately picks herself up and brings her big cannon to bear. She spins around, left, then right. She draws a bead on a rabbit with a half-chewed ear, poking a twitching nose from its burrow. "Did you do this?" she asks. The rabbit doesn't answer. But then rabbits are stoic. You want a secret kept, but have to tell someone. Tell a rabbit, they'll take it to their grave. I know this Yordle. She's called Tristana, and she looks mad. Like she's ready to march off to fight, but forgot which way the war was. Her purple skin is flushed a deeper shade than normal, and her white hair is swept back in a tight ponytail. She hefts her cannon and aims it towards the rabbit. It hops forward, unfazed by the threat. "I won't ask again," says Tristana, and Boomer never misses. The rabbit twitches its nose, cool as winter frost. Tristana's traveling companion sits up, a tiny winged fairy circling her head. Ah, Lulu and Pix. Her wild purple hair billows in a wind that only seems to affect her, and her tall hat sits at a funny angle. It's slipped over her eyes, and she taps around her with a curling stick. "I've gone blind," she says. "That's new." Tristana keeps her gaze locked on the rabbit and holds up a hand to silence Lulu. But her friend doesn't see it. Lulu gets up and walks in a circle, tapping the ground in front of her. The flowers duck, and the buzzing glitter bugs scatter before Pix can pluck their wings. Lulu's fairy companion is cute, but he's got a strange sort of humor. I can't ever tell if he's really funny or rude. Maybe it's both. "Tristana, are you there?" says Lulu. Tristana sighs in exasperation. She taps two fingers to her eyes, then points them at the rabbit with a stern look. "I'm watching you, Flopsy," she warns. Her jaw drops as she finally notices the humans in the glade. She darts over to Lulu and pushes her back against the tree. The portal they fell from is already fading as the light changes. "Humans," she hisses. "Where?" says Lulu. "It's all dark, but then sometimes I see more with my eyes closed." Tristana sighs and pulls the brim of Lulu's hat up. Lulu blinks and hugs Tristana. "It's a miracle." "Quiet," hisses Tristana, and Pix darts down to zap a tiny spike of violet light at her cheek. Tristana bats the fairy away with a grimace. I bend the shadows around the trees a little. Humans sometimes have a hard time seeing Yordles, at least as they really are. But I think the woman with the cold eyes might be sharper than most, and I don't want to see these two get hurt. Tristana glances around the tree. The Noxians are making camp, but I'm relieved to see they're not lighting a fire. Draven is grumbling about that, but Tamara is adamant they not broadcast their presence. I make sure all the wood in this glade is green and not good for fires. doesn't stop everyone who comes this way from trying their luck with an axe or saw. But most of them. Tristana nods to herself. They haven't seen us, she whispers. Good. They look friendly, says Lulu, peeking over Tristana's shoulder. I think we should say hello. They're Noxians, replies Tristana, and I feel her exasperation. You don't talk to Noxians unless you want to lose your head. Why? Do they like collecting heads? Tristana rolls her eyes, finally taking the time to examine her surroundings. I lift up some flowers and wave to her. She can't help but feel the magic in the glade, and waves back. Some people say Tristana's all business and so very serious, but I know better. She looks up at the tree and gives it an experimental rap with her knuckles. She taps gently around the bark, before finally hearing a booming echo from deep inside the tree. Some of the Noxians look up, and she winces. I creak some branches and persuade the water to splash playfully over the rocks. The Noxians return to their work. Tristana nods and says, "Thanks," before turning back to Lulu and asking, "Right, where's the Whispering Key?" "The what now?" "The thing we've been using to travel through all the portals." "Remind me, what did it look like?" "It looked a little like a compass made of carved stone." "Oh, you mean my doodad?" "Your..." begins Tristana, before settling on, "Yes, that's what I mean." Lulu does a pirouette and pats herself down, checking pockets that seem to appear and disappear at random. She closes one eye and bites her lip, pulling out coins, dice, chips of precious stones and glittering fluff, but nothing resembling a key. "I just had it." "Yes, you did," agrees Tristana through gritted teeth. "You used it to open the portal on the beach while we were running from that pack of crag wolves after we dropped in on Poppy." "I like Poppy, but she's so serious," says Lulu, stomping around as if she's marching on a parade ground. She pauses to stare at Tristana. "Wait, are you and her actually the same yordle?" "No, of course we're not," sighs Tristana. "Now will you hurry up, please?" "You could be, you know. Same hair, and that little furrow just above your nose when you get mad. See, there it is." Getting angry with Lulu won't do any good. It would be like chasing a cub that's stolen your shoe. It's all part of a fun game. I send a cooling breeze to ruffle Tristana's white hair, but it doesn't seem to help. "The whispering... I mean, your doodad. Can you just get it for me?" "Oh, right, yes, I was looking for that, wasn't I?" "Yes. Yes, you were." Lulu sighs, making a theatrical show of befuddlement. She looks up at the darkening sky and snaps her fingers. "No wonder I can't find it," she says. "It's too dark." She lifts her crooked staff, and Tristana's eyes widen as she realizes what Lulu's about to do. But it's too late to stop her. A stream of glitter bursts from the end of Lulu's staff and explodes like a swarm of dancing fireflies overhead. The glade is bathed in the glow of 1,000 stars and a secret gathering of moons. "Aha," says Lulu, finally pulling out something from a fold in her tunic. It looks like a cross between a budding seed pod and a curling seashell. A rainbow of colorful lines swirls on its surface, and what look like tiny tadpoles swim inside it. Here it is. Tristana looks horrified as the light from Lulu's staff floods the glade. But before she can react, a spinning axe blade flashes between the two of them and buries itself in the bark of the tree. Lulu almost jumps out of her skin, and the seed pod seashell flies from her hand. The silver bark cries out in pain, so I pour magic up through her roots and into the heartwood. Vivid amber sap oozes from the gouge in the wounded tree's bark, pinning the axe in place. Lulu's doodad sails through the air to land somewhere in the middle of the glade. It rolls into the tall grass, and I feel its primal energies pulse outwards in a rippling wave. "Oops," says Lulu. A veritable flurry of black-shafted arrows slices through the undergrowth as the Noxians respond the only way they know how. "Get back," shouts Tristana, swinging Boomer around and dragging Lulu away to find cover behind a moldy log covered in moss and ivy. An arrow punches into the rotten wood. Another splits the night a hair's breadth from Tristana's ear. Lulu squeals and picks darts to Tristana's side. Fresh wildflowers of blue, gold, and crimson instantly bloom on the dead wood. Tristana fires Boomer. Blam, blam, blam. Everyone ducks. Noxians, rabbits, and glitterbugs. Even the worms burrow deeper. Boomer's cannonballs streak burning streamers across the glade, and spouts of water leap from the stream to cool them as they ricochet from the rocks. The last thing we want in the glade is a fire. "Spread out!" yells Draven, running to retrieve his axe from the silverbark's trunk. The Noxians are quick to obey. Say what you want about the Noxians, and I've heard plenty of humans passing through my glade who have a lot to say about Noxians. They're disciplined. Tamara runs to her horse and draws a slender rapier from a saddle scabbard. She grins at Draven and says, "No chance of an ambush, eh?" Draven shrugs, and his aura gives no sense of any alarm or care at being proven wrong. All I sense is glee at the chance to spill blood. Yes, I definitely dislike him more than Tamara. The Noxian warriors spread through the glade, moving forward in pairs as archers loose steady volleys of arrows to keep the two Yordles from moving. I know nothing of war, but even I can see the deadly tactics of the Noxians will see Lulu and Tristana dead. I'm all for fun and games, but I don't want anyone killed. Magic surges through the ground in a powerful wave. I weave loops of grass that tangle the feet of the first Noxian soldier, a great brute of a man with a double-bladed axe. He goes down hard, slicing open his arm as he falls flat on his face. His companion trips over him, dropping her sword, and the man cries out in pain as it stabs a handspan into his buttock. An amberwood tree twists its trunk and whips its willowy branches around like a catapult. It smacks a crouching archer in the face, and he topples backwards. The arrow he was poised to loose goes straight up in the air. A careful gust of wind, and it plunges down between his legs, tearing his breeches open at the crotch. He yelps in alarm and scrambles back on his haunches. Tristana fires again, and Pix jumps onto her head, punching the air and shouting squeaking insults with every shot. Flowers fall from the air above the tiny fairy, and I see more than one arrow deflected around the Yordle gunner by their shimmering petals. "Can you see your doodad?" shouts Tristana over the cannon's noise. Lulu spins her staff around, and springs onto its shepherd's crook handle. She shades her eyes with one hand and peers through the fading illumination. An arrow slashes towards her, but the coiled point of her hat smacks it from the air. Nope. But then I don't know what it looks like now. What do you mean you don't know what it looks like now? Lulu spins in a spiral down her staff, and daisies spring up around her as she lands. The doodad's a bit flighty, you see. Every time I put it down, it likes to try out a different shape. Tristana groans as Lulu sends a blazing shaft of sparkling light through the trees. A pair of Noxians are hurled through the air. They land in the stream, and I immediately mob them with a knot of frogs. The tongues of bucket frogs are coated with slime that will give them waking dreams, and ought to send them to the moon and back. So it could look like anything? Asks Tristana. Pretty much, agrees Lulu. Just look for it out of the corner of your eye. It only changes if it thinks you're looking right at it. I never thought I'd say this, but I wish Heimer was here right now, says Tristana. We could really use his hex goggles. Don't be silly, says Lulu. That'd take all the fun out of this. Tristana spins on her heel to fire at a Noxian leaping towards her. Her cannonball punches him square in the chest, and he flies back into a thorny bush that suddenly gets a lot more thorny. Fun, she says. Then she grins. You know what? You're right. Let's have some fun with these numpties. Grab on. Lulu laughs and throws her arms around Tristana's neck as if she's about to give her a big, sloppy kiss. Tristana fires again, and this time her cannon is aimed at the ground. The two Yordles erupt from behind the flowery, arrow-studded log and arc over the heads of the advancing soldiers. The Noxians watch in open-mouthed surprise as the two Yordles spin over their heads, giggling musically as they go. Who knows what the Noxians are seeing? Something strange, no doubt. A Yordle's glamour is an inconstant thing, and even they don't know how others see them most of the time. Gleaming bolts corkscrew from Lulu's staff, and everywhere they hit, Noxians are thrown from their feet in a spray of petals and sparks that burn like drops of venom. The two Yordles land on the run, and while Tristana spins around, firing at any Noxians who rear their heads, Lulu scrambles around on all fours in search of her doodad. What Once Sailed Free by Michael Luo. The prisoner stands tall, his ankles chained to a wooden post, his wrists bound together with coarse rope. Blood trickles down his cheeks onto his black Noxian tunic. leaving small red puddles by his bare toes. Above him, the sky paints patches of gray against blue, unsure of its true colors. A fence of tall, jagged stakes surrounds the prisoner. Nearby soldiers run from tent to tent. Their hurried steps kick up dust, leaving grime on their boots they will be sure to clean before they face their commanders. The prisoner knows this, having observed their disciplined behavior over the past days. It is unlike any he has ever seen. Around the camp, bright navy banners ripple in the wind, displaying the image of a sword dividing two spread wings, the sigil of Demetia. Not long ago, these were the black and crimson banners of Noxus. The prisoner remembers his orders to reclaim Calstead for the glory of the Empire. He failed, and he knows the consequences. War does not forgive failure. This is the truth he is prepared to accept. For now, he awaits his fate. The first time he was held prisoner, he lost his home. This time, he will lose even more. He closes his eyes as more memories flood his mind. There were two men, he recalls. His master, he knew. He had turned a lost boy taken from his home into a fighter fit for the Reckoner arenas. The other was a stranger, claiming to represent the Empire's best interests. After they shook hands, he was sent west, under the shadow of the Argent Mountains, to Calstead. There were no goodbyes, no well wishes. But he was not alone. Others like him shared a name, soldiers of misfortune, as they were called back in Noxus. Ragtag groups of fighters sent to deal with tasks unworthy of a veteran warband's attention. Not many had a say in the matter, their masters too willing to sell their talents to the military for the right price. "You don't look like you're from Noxus," a voice calls out, breaking the prisoner's moment of reflection. He opens his eyes and sees a Demacian man standing outside the enclosure. His garb is a mix of navy and brown fabric covered by chainmail, and a short sword hangs by his waist. He has the bearing of a leader, the prisoner decides, but a junior one. "What's your name?" the soldier calls. The prisoner thinks. Will his answer decide his fate? "Zhao," he replies, his voice rough and dry. "What?" Zhao. That doesn't sound like a Noxian name, the soldier wonders aloud. Noxian names are tough, like Boram Darkwill. He says the two words are with a shudder. Zhao does not reply. He doubts this conversation is worth having before his coming execution. "Come along, Shield Sergeant," says another Demacian. The young officer's severe look commands the sergeant's attention. She wears silver armor with gold trim adorning her shoulder pauldrons. A cape of vivid blue falls down her back. "Don't bother conversing with Noxians," she advises. "They do not share our virtues." The sergeant bows his head. "Yes, Sword Captain Crown Guard. But if I might ask..." The captain nods. "Why is this one being kept by himself?" She glances at the prisoner, her blue eyes stern with contempt. "This one ended more lives than the others." Zhao wakes to the sound of horns. He sits in the mud, kicking his numb feet at the damp soil. Pressing his back against the post, he snakes himself up to a standing position and sees the sergeant from the day before approach. accompanied by 4 others dressed in similar attire. They open the gate to the enclosure, and the sergeant walks through first, carrying a tray holding a bowl of hot soup. "Morning. I'm Olber, and this is my watch unit," the sergeant says. "Here's your breakfast, Zhao." Zhao watches him set the tray on the ground. Who knew someone could mispronounce 2 syllables so cruelly? A Damacian guard cuts through the rope binding Zhao's wrists with practiced motions. The sergeant and the others stand by, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. "Well, go on and eat," Olber says. Zhao picks up the bowl. "They sent 5 of you." "We do as the captain orders," Olber explains. "She's a crown guard, after all. They protect the king himself." The guards nod along and turn to each other. "Aye, her father saved the last Jarvan at Storm's Fang," one mentions. "Which Jarvan was that?" another asks. "Second. We're on the 3rd one now. That's King Jarvan the 3rd. Olber interjects. "Your king, and mine. You ought to show some respect, given he personally rode out here with us." They think highly of their king, Zhao notes. While the soldiers continue to banter, he drinks his soup, 1 sip at a time, as he listens to their conversation. They speak of how foolish the Noxians were to venture this far west, of how easy it was for them to come to Kalsted's aid, and of how their triumph was one achieved in the name of justice. "We were sent here to die," Zhao realizes. He grips the empty bowl so tightly it cracks, the wood coming apart in his hands. The Damacians turn their attention. Olber looks at Zhao. "Hands." Zhao offers his palms facing upward. "You sure took a beating," Olber remarks, tying new rope around Zhao's wrists. The guards gather around. They see scars everywhere, running like rivers up and down his skin. Zhao follows their gaze. He can no longer tell which scars came from which match. There were so many that he fought, and so few he cared to remember. "Those aren't recent wounds," one of the guards observes. "You're right," Zhao says. His voice, clear and strong, grabs their attention. For a moment, they stand still, looking at him, like he is no longer just another prisoner. "What did you do back in Noxus?" Olber asks. "I fought in the arenas," Zhao answers. "A reckoner," a guard exclaims. "I've heard of you savages. They fight to the death in front of thousands." "I've never heard of no reckoner named Zhao," another mutters. "Maybe he wasn't a good one. Maybe that's why he's here, all beaten and tied up." "Hold on," Olber chimes in. "Don't you reckoners use different names in the arena?" Zhao almost smiles. This Damacian is smarter than he lets on. It is known, even outside the Empire, that reckoners often choose inventive titles. Some opt for the extravagant. Others have something to hide. For Zhao, it was to remember the life he had before it was taken away. "Visquero," a guard says, holding an unfurled piece of parchment. That's what the other Noxians called him. Olber snatches the parchment. He examines it. A few long seconds pass before he looks up at Zhao. "You're the reckoner." Silence. Thin streaks of sunlight cut through the gray sky. Viscero, Olber repeats, his voice tinged with awe. The one who never lost. The guards look to each other, then together they stare at Zhao, their eyes now lit with recognition. "I know you," says a guard. "Didn't you beat a minotaur?" says another. Olber raises a hand to halt the idle chatter. "Why'd you say your name was Zhao?" he asks. Zhao sighs. "Once I became a reckoner, there was no more Zhao. There was only Viscero." He looks down at his bound wrists, at his chained ankles, and then back at the Demacians. "In the time I have left, I'd rather live by my real name." "But what's a famous reckoner doing fighting Noxus's border wars?" Olber asks again. "I was bought out," Zhao replies, "by the military." He finds explaining all this rather strange. For so long, he had assumed his final moments would pass by quickly, in the arena, by spear or sword, not with a hot meal and questions about his past. Is this fate offering its last sympathies? Olber appears troubled. "You didn't have a choice," he says. Zhao shakes his head. "You have family left in Noxus?" Zhao thinks for a moment, then shakes his head again. He wonders if he has any family at all, anywhere. "Well, I guess you're off to a new beginning." Olber nods at a guard who pulls out a key and starts unchaining Zhao from his pole. Zhao tilts his head, curious. "What do you mean?" Olber smiles. "Let's get you dressed." Zhao sits upright in the new tunic given to him. The Demacian fabric feels soft on his skin. He looks about the tent, counting the straw beds and the empty bowls of soup. Remarks of gratitude fill his ears. He recognizes the earthy voices. They come from others who, hours ago, were prisoners like him. One by one they rise from their beds and thank the healers who mended their wounds. Armed Demacians enter the tent. Zhao watches the prisoners be escorted out. He knows them well, having marched alongside them to Kalstead. On their journey, they spent much of their time trying to best each other in individual feats of strength, with the victors celebrating their might and the defeated left in shame. Those especially vocal would boast aloud how many Demacian soldiers they planned to kill. That was before they came face to face with a real army. There was no battle. Maybe the Noxian military would have fared better, with its legions and siege weaponry. But they were not the military. They were conscripts, untrained in the ways of formal combat, facing a unified kingdom. Within hours, Kalstead cheered for its saviors. "We were sent here to die," Zhao reminds himself. And yet as fate would have it, they still lived, not by the will of Noxus, but by that of Demacia. Fate flows like the four winds, his elders had once said, and no man can know its course until he sails it. An old healer walks by. Her pale robe matches the others working in the tent. "How are you feeling, child?" she asks. "I'm fine," Zhao replies. "Thank you." "Do not thank me. Thank the king. It was by his royal decree that all prisoners be cared for." The third Jarvan? This king again. How can one man inspire so much? Yes, our great Jarvan the Third. She corrects him. He granted you the opportunity to begin anew, to find peace. Zhao looks down at the floor with his hands folded. Vizquero could always find a place in the arena. And elsewhere, the peoples of Valoran would embrace him for his strength. That much he is certain. As for his birthplace, the first lands beyond the sea he has not seen for decades. It is as foreign to him now as any distant fantasy. Where could he find peace? Would he want it? No, his chance at peace died long ago, when he took his first life and was rewarded with an extension on his own. Zhao turns to the healer. I have one question, if I may. What is it, child? This king of yours, who is he? The healer chuckles. Why don't you see for yourself? Zhao walks behind Olber with 4 guards surrounding him. As they trudge through the camp, he peers into the passing tents, seeing Damatian soldiers pack their belongings and captains plan for their next deployment. Rumors tell that somewhere, not a week's march away, another battle against Noxus is imminent. Zhao ponders if that is where these people will head, following a trail of turmoil, righting wrongs wherever they go. They seem to serve a higher calling, something stronger than strength, and perhaps more valuable. He imagines how that might feel, to be so clear in your convictions you would sacrifice your own life for them. There were times in the arena when his life meant nothing. Now, it is worth an audience with a king. Looks like you're the last one, Olber says, stopping the escort and pointing ahead. Zhao follows the sergeant's finger and spots a tent larger than all the others. The same bright navy banners grace its roof. Guards in gleaming armor stand in parallel lines outside its entrance. He sees a man, bearing Noxian tattoos on his face and neck, shuffle out carrying a small bag. The man bows his head multiple times before he is led away by one of the guards. And immediately, another Damatian steps in to fill the empty space. That's the king's tent, Olber says. We are to stay here. You go in, kneel, accept the provisions granted to you by the king, and then we'll collect you. The sergeant smiles. The king said once you're in front of him, you're a free beast, a Yabi man. But you'll still need us when you're out. Captain Crownguard runs this camp, and she'll not have enemy combatants walk alone. Not till they leave Kalstead for good. Zhao gives a knowing nod and heads toward the tent. The king welcomes Vizquero. The voice that hails him is deep and proper. Zhao walks forth. Once inside, he kneels on his right leg and bows his head low. The floor is covered in cloth embroidered with depictions of winged knights and helmed warriors. You may look up. Another voice comes. Zhao lifts his head and identifies its source. It is a man, not much older than himself, sitting on a raised oaken chair. He wears radiant gold-plated armor, embellished with ebony spikes. Atop his head is a crown adorned with jewels. By his right hand lies a great steel lance, its edges sharp like the teeth of some magnificent beast. This is their king, Zhao realizes. His eyes linger on the man for a second longer, sensing the air of majesty about him, paired with a raw physical presence he had not expected. To the king's left stands Sword Captain Crownguard, just as stoic as when Zhao first saw her. To his right, dressed in a royal tunic, is a little boy. He sits on an oaken chair of his own, with his small leather boots dangling over the edge. It is impossible not to notice the king's likeness in him, both having strong noses and square jaws. 2 additional guards surround these 3, each holding a spear pointing upward. Viscero is quite an unusual name, King Jarvan III says. What is its origin? Zhao peers downward, wondering how he should respond. You will speak when the king addresses you, the sword captain commands. At ease, Tiana, the king says with a wave of his hand. He is surely shocked by the events of these past few days. We would be right to offer this man his time, would we not? The sword captain opens her mouth only to close it without a word, choosing instead to give a curt nod. It is a reminder of my home, Zhao answers. Oh, is that so? The king says, intrigued. I have studied much of Noxus, yet I have never heard of a place called Viscero. It is not so much a place, but a memory, albeit one that changed meaning in Noxus. Ah, the king says, looking briefly at his son. Memories of one's childhood are such, but it is not my real name. You dare interrupt the king, the sword captain roars. Her hand clutches the hilt of her sword. Zhao bows his head. Then he hears laughter, hearty and full. Again, the voice of Jarvan III. You are the first one today to have caused Tiana such grievance, the king says. It is her inaugural battle leading the dauntless vanguard, though it was not much of a battle. I am sure you would agree. He pats the shoulder of the young prince, who has stayed quiet, attentively observing his father. Please, the king says, tell us your story, Viscero, whose real name has not yet been revealed to me. Keeping his gaze low, Zhao takes a breath. My birth name is Zhao, given to me by my parents who I have not seen since I was a boy. They may be alive or dead. I do not know. He swallows hard. The place I was born is known as Rykon, a coastal village in the First Lands, which the people here call Ionia. My childhood was spent on a fishing boat named Viscero, helping the elders with whatever they needed. Life was simple, peaceful, until the marauders came in their red and black ships. He closes his eyes for a second. No Demacian speaks. We didn't stand a chance. I was taken. After months on the sea, I found myself in Noxus. Everything was towering, oppressive, harsh. There was none of the natural beauty that filled my home. Zhao thinks he hears hushed sounds of agreement, a resonant murmur, a tiny voice, whispering. As any lost boy would, I did what was needed to survive. Things I'm not proud of that got the attention of those with power. They recognized my strength and turned me into a fighter. From there, Viscero was reborn as a reckoner. He sighs as his voice grows soft. I killed many foes, some whose real names I didn't even know. The more I killed, the louder the crowds cheered, Viscero, Viscero, as their gold filled the pockets of my masters. I thought that would be how I lived out my days, fighting in the arena, for the thrill of others. That is, until Noxus offered my masters more gold than the arenas could ever bring. Zhao's shoulders slump. That was all it took for me to end up here. Your soldiers know the rest. Jarvan III is quiet. Everyone waits for him to speak. You have lived quite the life, the king finally says. He glimpses at his son before looking back at Zhao. Thank you for sharing with us your journey. It makes me, and all of Demacia, proud to be able to release you from the bonds of Noxus. The king nods toward one of the guards, who brings out a linen pouch and sets it down before Zhao. It jingles with coin. This is the blessing of Jarvan III, Captain Crownguard declares. There is enough gold there to last you 1 week's worth of travel. Know that you've erred to invade lands protected by the kingdom of Demacia. But as a show of good faith, our king has granted you a second chance. Use it well. Zhao glances at the pouch. He does not budge. Is it that simple? Take this bag and walk out of here in peace. Just now, he spoke more honestly about himself than he has ever done to a stranger who could have ended his life with the wave of a hand. However, that stranger cared to listen, and through that, he became a stranger no more. There is no peace, Ababdis, for me, but maybe there can be a cause. Well, Captain Crownguard says, pointing 2 fingers toward the exit. Zhao lowers his head. I have one request, if I may. Speak, the king says. I wish to join your guard. Absurd, Captain Crownguard shouts. The guards strike the ends of their spears against the ground in accord. The king lets out a soft chuckle and turns to his sword captain. What an interesting proposition. Surely you can't. Captain Crownguard begins, before she is silenced by her king's hand once more. Let the man explain himself, Jarvan III says with a grin. I wish to hear his reasoning. Zhao raises his head. His eyes meet the king's. You have shown me mercy and honor, he begins. 2 things I never knew until now. All my years in Noxus, I spent fighting for a cause not my own. And during that time, I knew of only 2 truths. Victory meant survival, and defeat meant death. That was what I learned, seeing other fighters fall in the arena or disappear, never to be seen again after too many losses. But you and your people fight for something else, something more. A breeze ruffles the tent. 2 small leather boots shuffle. Zhao clears his throat. And I'd rather die fighting for honor than live out my days regretting that I never made that choice. Jarvan III leans forward. All others know to remain quiet. You speak well, the king replies. Better than some of my own advisors, truth be told. Still my wards endure years, decades even, of training. How am I to believe you are capable? Zhao stares at the king, at the prince, at Captain Crownguard. A part of him knows what he could say. Another knows what he could do. Is it his choice to make? No. Fate has made its choice. He grabs the coin pouch and throws it at the sword captain, hitting her in the face. While she recovers, he sweep kicks the guard to his left, knocking him to the floor. Zhao snatches the Demacian's spear, swinging it in a circle to trip the other guard to his right. His body moves on instinct, fluid and swift as his mind pretends he is back in the arena. With one final twirl of the weapon, he jabs it forward at Jarvan III, its blunt end stopping inches short of the king's throat. The young prince gasps. The king's guard gather themselves. Soldiers rush in as the sword captain draws her blade. Zhao falls to his knees. He lays the spear down without a sound and offers his neck. Finely crafted steel weapons touch his skin. Tension fills the room. All eyes lock onto Zhao, whose own eyes are closed, at peace, ready to accept whatever comes next. The king straightens his cloak. "Stand down," he commands. "My father once said Noxus wasted its talent in those arenas. Now I see the truth in his words." "My king," Captain Crownguard begs. "He tried to kill you." "No, Tiana," the king replies. "He showed me how I could be killed, even in front of my own trusted guards." "My deepest apologies," Zhao says. His voice is calm and measured. A quiet tide, not yet ready to flow ashore. "It was the only way I thought to demonstrate myself." "And demonstrate you did," the king says. "To me, and these warriors of Demacia, it appears they could learn a thing or two from you." "I will not have the king's guard be sullied by a prisoner," Captain Crownguard exclaims. "When this man entered my sight, he was a prisoner no more." The king stands from his chair. Demacia was founded long ago by good people who sought refuge from the evils of this world. This man's story reminds me of those tales of old, of great Orlon and his followers, the very ones my father once told me. His gaze falls on the prince, who looks back, amazed. "My son, my life's joy," the king says. "How happy I am that you are here to witness this moment, to see for yourself why we must uphold our virtues, so others may aspire to do the same. Do you understand?" "Yes, father," the prince says, his voice small but firm. The king steps forward. "Zhao, you have touched me with your life and your courage. A rare thing I have not felt in some time." He bends down to help Zhao to his feet. "Though you may not have been born a Demacian, I shall allow you to travel back with us to my kingdom, where you will then prove yourself and your loyalty as my personal guard." Zhao feels the king's sturdy hands grip his shoulders. "Do not take this opportunity lightly." Zhao looks Jarvan III in the eye, and for the first time, in a long time, he feels joy washing over his body like the waves that once carried Vizquero free. The night air is chilly this far north of Calstead. There is still a week or so before he will gaze upon the walls of the great city of Demacia, Zhao thinks, as he walks outside his tent. A familiar face stands by the entrance. "Still awake?" Olber says. "I'm going for a walk. Won't be long." Strolling through the camp alone, Zhao takes in the spirit of his new allies. They are an orderly lot, quick to aid one another and ensure safety among their ranks. Seeing their disciplined manner brings a smile to his face. He rounds a corner to look up at the crescent moon when he feels a sudden force pulling him down. His body collides hard against the ground. After blinking a couple times, he regains his senses and realizes he has been dragged inside a dimly lit tent. The sword captain glares down at him. Beside her stand fearsome soldiers dressed in heavy warplate. "You may have won the king's favor, but you are no Demacian in my eyes. she states. As Zhao stands on his feet, she unsheathes her sword. Like the pride following their lioness, those around her do the same. I will be watching you, she warns. Should anything happen to the king while you are sworn in his service. With 2 hands, Zhao clasps the flat sides of her blade. Take this as my oath to you. Tiana Crownguard looks on, stunned, as he pulls the sword's tip toward his own throat. Should anything happen, Zhao says, you may kill me.